Cavs are at an interesting place in the season, not just with coming off of a 16-game win streak, but also a 4-game losing streak. They're also in this weird part where, look, man, everything you need to know about the Cavs, you have learned already before this West Coast trip, right? Like, if this were the NFL, just to put this in perspective for a lot of folks, the Cavs would be the team that already got the division locked up. Like they won the division like 2 months ago, right? They clinched home court for the first round. Earlier than they won the division, right?
Dude, it was like March 5th or something crazy. Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, like they came out the All-Star break and they played really, really good basketball to start. And now they're at this point to where it's like, okay, well, the only thing keeping us motivated is can we get to 67 wins, right, and get the best record in Cavs history. But this is a weird part of the season because you don't want to see them look bad, but you do want to see them take some time to kind of get healthy. Also, another thing I think people haven't considered, Kenny had this team really locked in around the All-Star break and after the All-Star break. Like, they were playing some of their most focused basketball for like a month straight. And I think that's like a strategic Kenny Atkinson thing to be like, hey, you got to play about, 2 months of focused basketball to get to about a month of focused basketball, get to the NBA Finals. Once you get to the NBA Finals, the extra week there, it's like 6 weeks, right? And I think that was a focus of Kenny being like, hey, we're going to be focused for the next 6 weeks and see how many games we can win. They won like 16. Yeah. Okay.
They won them all.
Yeah, which if you count, right, 4, that's a championship, right? Well, no, my math's funky on that.
No, that is, right?
No, it's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
You're right. You got it.
There you go. You know, my creative arts degree showing right there. But they won 16 games in a row, which they were really focused for that stretch. Once they lost that 16th game, you could see the focus kind of like die out a little bit. And I think, one, it's natural. You could only be that locked in for so long. And also, I think if you're Kenny, you're like, all right, I need to have these guys like relax so that they can be focused for the playoffs. But you did want to have them do it just to demonstrate to them that they can do it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, they completely locked in really for most of the first like 50 games of the season. They were totally locked in. And now I think there has been, I know there was a story, Kenny Atkinson decided, hey, we're not going to go through a hard practice today. We're just going to play horse. And people were upset about that. Like, you're on a 4-game losing streak. You're over here playing horse. But listen, Kenny Atkinson, he's won a championship in Golden State. He understands what he's doing. All right. He understands this team. They've proven everything you have to prove in the regular season at this point. They've been obliterating teams all year long. We know what they're capable of. We've learned basically everything we need to know about this team before the playoffs. You just got to kind of, relax, catch your breath. Let's settle back in. The 16-game losing streak ended. I don't think they planned on going on a 4-game skid. They,
16-game winning streak, Tony.
Yeah.
16-game winning streak.
Did I say the wrong? Did I say?
Streak, yeah.
16-game winning streak. My bad. 16-game winning streak ended.
Brought
and
me
then,
back to 2000 and, 2012 with that one. Oh, Lord.
PTSD right there. My bad.
I was like, Jamario moving on the team? Like
that one just slipped. But like I said, I don't think they planned on going on a 4-game skid after that. But they definitely took their eye off the ball a little bit, right? Like, the dudes are tired. There's been injuries. Guys are resting, missing games. But, you beat the Utah Jazz. Cool. That's not all that impressive, right? You should be able to beat the Jazz. But then you pick up back-to-back wins now. You've got one against the Trailblazers who, I've said they're not a slouch. They're not a bad team. They've been playing 500 basketball. They've been playing really good recently. And you have no Donovan Mitchell. So they come out more focused in this game, not for the entire 48 minutes, but for, like you said, just a couple minutes where it matters. Ty Jerome puts up 25. Garland puts up 27. They all just came together. The depth has been getting it done all year long. And when you have 8 or 9 guys on the roster who are totally locked in, you can kind of smack Portland, a very good basketball team, after not playing your best basketball for the first half. So this Cavs team, I don't think anybody should have overreacted to the 4-game losing streak. Slumps are going to happen. Not only were the Cavs in the shooting slump, but opponents were shooting like 45% from deep during that losing streak too. So the effort, it wasn't amazing, but I don't think it was solely an effort thing. I think there was a lot of things happening all at once. They weren't shooting the ball well. Opponents were shooting it amazing, and they had taken their eye off the ball a little bit. But against Utah and Portland, we saw, they still got it. It didn't disappear. They can still turn it on for stretches, and hopefully they'll be ready to turn it on in like 2 weeks when the playoffs start.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think is going under the radar with this Cavs team. I hope I'm right about this, right? But a lot of people peg this team as like super inexperienced. But when I watched them in years past, I would see it where I'm like, okay, this team, like, they got smacked with like a really like intense moment and it kind of like threw them a little bit. I don't watch this Cavs team this year and think that they're inexperienced. I watch this Cavs team and be like, oh, they're doing the experienced team stuff, right? Like, we talked about it, right? The veteran, like, we haven't seen this since LeBron had like his good teams in Cleveland, right? Where he had like Kyrie and Kevin still, where he would be like, okay, man, I'm not losing to the Jazz. Let's go ahead and let's come on, let's finish this game up, right? Let's go on a run. Let's pull this one out. We're not going to lose to the Jazz. Stephen ain't going to talk about that, right? And it doesn't even necessarily include LeBron going off. It's just like, okay, you could just see J.R. Smith's running a lot harder on these screens. Like, it's not a full 40-minute effort, right? But it is like those 10 minutes where they give you like, okay, I'm playing for real. You realize it, right? Like, it's like when somebody who can actually hoop decides they want to hoop for real against you, you're like, oh shit, like I'm not getting anything off. But that's what this team has been able to do. It's like, okay, there are times where they play like 20 minutes of bad basketball, which I would beg anybody to watch the Cavs as much as you watch any other team, right? You will see the Boston Celtics do the same exact thing all the time. Boston Celtics got sniped by the Cavs twice because they do this, right?
Yeah, like, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like you will have these moments where you're like, okay, we're going to gear down a little bit because it's the regular season or whatever it is, or we're up by 10 or whatever. Gets closer, but then you got that switch to be like, okay, we're gonna turn this on. We're gonna play for real, right? And the Cavs have that switch in them. I think even before they broke the losing streak, right? Who did they play? Was it the Suns? It was the Suns.
Yeah.
They were on the verge of coming back there against the Suns, but like they let Kevin Durant get hot, right? And that was just, you never let Kevin Durant get hot against Cleveland. It's never a good thing. Or even against the Clippers, the game they lost to start this whole thing. They were playing like they closed the game to try to close the game. Kawhi just went 2019 Kawhi on you, and it's like, all right, James is making shots. Like, this is one of them days where the Clippers look like the Clippers are supposed to look like. Like, okay, cool. We caught them on one of them days. And I think that's kind of what got the better of them in this road trip. Is like, okay, some of these teams play better, shot way better than you anticipated. You're getting the weird stretch of the year where you're catching a Matisse Thybulle 4 for 5 performance, right? Like, it's just that time of the year where you're just catching some weird ones, right? You're getting that bad NBA luck that every team gets. We've seen it, right? Where even LeBron's teams have some questionable loss. I mean, LeBron lost to the Knicks his first game back as a Cavalier.
Yeah,
right?
Like weird stuff happens, man. Even like just last week, the Nuggets with everyone injured beat Golden State, like a healthy Golden State team. I mean, it's like, just look across anyone who only watches Cavs games. I get it if you're like, oh, how are they losing these games? But like, watch the other games and you'll see like the Chicago Bulls are like beating everybody right now. Like, March is just weird for basketball.
It's so straight. I remember this too. I forget what time of year it was, but this is like fresh after LeBron had left the Cavs. The Heat were on this ridiculous win streak, like a 22-game win streak, and the Cavs didn't have a single one. Their starters were sorry to begin with, right? But like they didn't have any of them, and it was like Wayne Ellington, and
CJ Miles,
Spades, and Sean Livingston, and CJ Miles. I don't think CJ was out. CJ was one of the starters.
Oh, was he?
We'd have CJ. We'd have Alonzo G. like I don't know if Kyrie was on that team yet. No, Tristan was on the team, so Kyrie had to be on the team.
He didn't play though. I don't think. During the win streak? I was at this game in Cleveland. If we're thinking of the same game, I don't
where
think
the guy
Kyrie
ran
played.
onto the court.
Yes, yeah. I was at this game, and that was back when. So, real quick story time. Obviously, this was back when most of Cleveland still hated LeBron. I was already at the point where I was like, all right, I was mad that he left, but damn, this dude's just too good at basketball to hate him this long. So I'm in the arena. I'm not really booing or anything, but I'm just watching, and the Cavs they go up by like 20. I'm like, all right, wow, we're about to end their win streak with all of our guys out. And then LeBron just said, yeah, no, this win streak's not ending today. Completely took over the game. It was one of the most dominant, like every single aspect of the game. LeBron was controlling it, and I was just in awe. I'm in like middle school. I'm completely in awe. Even the crowd now, who was booing him the entire game, is starting to go like, ooh and ah and all this. And the person in front of me literally stood up, turned around, was like, I thought we were in Cleveland. What's going on here? Like, he was pissed that people were starting to turn for LeBron. So that is like burned into my memory. This dude just being disgusted that the crowd had turned into his favor. But it was one of the craziest performances I've ever seen, and it hurt because they ended up beating us. But I was like, damn, man, this is literally peak LeBron. This is 2013 LeBron, maybe the best he's ever been. I was just like, hey, I'm mad he left, but I might be looking at the greatest basketball player of all time right now.
No, Villain Brown was nasty. He was absolutely nasty. Because I remember watching that game thinking, we're not going to win. We were up by 20, and I was like, because I think Tristan Thompson got like 20 and 10 that game.
Going crazy, yeah.
It might have been 10 and 20. Like, Noah Tristan, right?
That sounds more like it.
I remember joking with my baseball coach that day, like, oh, yeah, Tristan Thompson, 20 for 20, dog. It's going to happen. Look, Tristan Thompson was the original Evan Mobley going to take that leap, right? Tristan going to get that offense going. It never happened for Tristan. But yeah, Tristan was hooping in that game. Wayne Ellington was hooping in that game. Sean Livingston was hooping. Most Spates was the Warriors' future bench of that dynasty was hooping in that game. And I just knew, I was like, there's no way this is how we beat LeBron, is ending this streak. It's too good. It was too good. And then I think LeBron did the Dr. J, but he dunked it. Right, where he goes, like he used to do that. Remember that
absurd,
shit?
Yeah.
Like
he go up and under baseline,
under and then he finishes strong. And I was like, you're not with him.
Doing whatever he wants. Ray Allen started hitting threes. I was like, yeah, this 20-point lead is about to be gone any second.
And I think he hit either the first or second silencer of all time in that game, and then gave us a lay FU 3 before it was called that, right? Yeah. Like before we even knew that would be a thing. Like, because LeBron's threes used to be so straight line back then too. So when they went in, it was just make this nasty sound. Villain Brown was different, man.
It was a different time, man. Those Miami teams, it's crazy. We've officially gotten to the point where it was so long ago. It's like 12 years ago. There's people on Twitter who don't even know. I saw it, not to get too derailed, but I saw people, posting LeBron stats this year, and they're better than when he was in Miami. I'm like,
no.
they might look better statistically, but like I promise you, I was there. He is not the same player. He's still good, but you got to go back and watch that 2013 LeBron season. Dude was unstoppable. He should have been the unanimous MVP.
We're gonna have to have ridiculous arguments about LeBron our whole life.
Yeah, like, that was my first indication. I was like, damn, now I know how Jordan fans feel. Like, these kids didn't even watch it, and they're over here saying crazy stuff. I'm like, man, I can see my future. This is gonna be rough.
LeBron's gonna kind of be treated like the Wilt Chamberlain of our time, right? Like where he is this statistical, athletic marvel that people still like have these weird criticisms about, right? It's like, but yeah, LeBron, different beast. Can't wait for that documentary to drop. LeBron's going to do a documentary, 3 movies. Like, it's going to be great for the first, decade of it. And, Richard Jefferson, we know he's going to be in that podcast crew, the documentary crew. Iman Shumpert, he's going to get a big bag off of this whole thing, right? Every single LeBron doc, he's going to be there. He's going to be there narrating the story. It's going to be fun to see how this evolves once he's no longer a player. But anyway, to the whole point of bringing that up,
back to the Cavs,
right? We got caught up in the LeBron-ness of the conversation, but the whole point of bringing that up is, dog, the Heat almost lost to a C team Cavaliers team, and that Cavs team was bad. They got the #1 pick that year. right? Like that
Yeah,
was at the
yeah.
end
That,
of
that
the
was
minute.
when we ended. Yeah, we ended up getting. Oh wait, no, that must have been because LeBron came home the next year. No.
No,
That
that
was
was
Bennett. You're
Andrew
right. Yeah,
Wiggins.
yeah, you're
That was
right.
Andrew Wiggins' pick year, right? Because
Was
LeBron
it?
came home the next year.
It
We
was
had the
okay.
number one
Yeah.
overall pick. We traded Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love.
Yep. Yeah.
By the
So yeah, I
way,
did.
hate to get derailed again, but every time people like prematurely say, "Oh, this rivalry when it hits the NFL, it's going to be crazy," or it hits the league, I'm like, I just remember Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins in the summer league, and it felt like that was the next Magic and Bird.
I haven't thought about Jabari Parker in years. That name is crazy. It was supposed to be
It
LeBron.
was
Well, Wiggins wasn't getting LeBron comparisons, but it was supposed to be Carmelo, Jabari Parker, and then
yeah,
Wiggins was
Carmelo and
like
Kobe.
Michael Jordan or something. Yeah, Kobe. Yeah, that's what it was. It was oh my god,
And it did not end up being Carmelo
crazy.
and Kobe, right? Both
No,
guys ended
neither
up,
one of
like,
them.
at certain points being solid role players, but like you couldn't tell me
Yeah.
that. When that what was that Hoop mixtape had that amazing
They
Andrew
were
Wiggins. It was the
generational.
craziest shit you've ever seen on that mixtape. But yeah, that was back when that kind of thing could really propel you further than it really should have. Right?
Yeah, those Scoop mixtapes, man. I was thinking Marcus Levette Jr. I don't think he ever even made the league, but I remember his Hoop mixtape, the handles, everything. I was like, this dude's next up. I don't even know if he played college. I don't even know where he went. It just completely disappeared. But Hoop mixtapes back in the day, man, that was generational.
Hey, look, sold me on Kyrie immediately. I didn't care about the 11 games at Duke. I saw the 5-minute mixtape.
Yeah,
Like,
you saw everything you needed.
I'm like, nah, he's cold. Like, did you see him dribble and the ball basically was on the floor? Like,
Doing some Globetrotter stuff.
Kyrie is such an insane player. We're getting distracted, but we got to talk about this. And we're fortunate as Cavs fans to have this much history to talk about. But Kyrie's dribble is so insane that, like, it's obviously gotten better, but it doesn't look different than it is than it was when it started. I'm like, that's how good he is, dog. It was just that good coming into the league. Like, it was ridiculous. Best handle. Like, even Darius, who has a really nasty dribble, it ain't Kyrie at all.
No, man. It's the balance, like you mentioned. He's like on the floor dribbling. He gets so low to the ground. I've never seen a player dribble the ball like that.
Flat basketball.
Yeah.
I'm convinced. Like, he can
make it
dribble
work.
a flat basketball. Because I've seen him just like the ball's not even bouncing high. He can control where it's so intentional with Kyrie, whereas like with Darius, like he's working. He's getting that dribble in. He's working.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with Steph's dribble, where Steph has a really good dribble. It looks like Steph works to have that dribble.
They're working up
It
a
look
sweat.
like
They're exerting themselves. Kyrie can do it in
read
his
a
sleep.
fucking book and cross you over at the same
Yeah.
time. Like, because it's just not even he's thinking about it. He's just like, it's just a flow. It's an art with Kyrie, which, again, it makes sense that Kevin Durant's favorite players are like these point guards who can dribble and can give you these buckets like Darius and Kyrie. But yeah, back to the main point of, like, it's the NBA. Crazy stuff happens in the NBA. Upsets happen all the time in the NBA, right? I mean, the Cavs beat the KD Warriors the first time they played them, right? Like, what happens in the regular season, or more or less, what happens in a game in a regular season? You can't take that to be too much because the larger sample will eventually tell that story. That Heat team, right? They went 26 wins or whatever they rattled off. Hey, man, by the time they got to the playoffs, you could kind of tell they were gonna get beat. Right, when they got to the finals, like, I don't think they got the Spurs this time. I think this is the one they finally lose, right? Like, the exhaustion finally set in for them. So that's where I'm like, you got to manage the season. We would love to be on the win streak the whole year, win 82 games, but then, like, if the Cats win 82-0, you'd be nervous as shit about the playoffs. Like, because when is it gonna happen? Right? Like, if this is when we're gonna shoot 30% on a West Coast trip when nobody's fucking watching, cool. Right? Like, that's actually fortunate, right? Because you know you're going to have these numbers. Like DeAndre Hunter, we knew it was going to drop at some point. He wasn't going to shoot 60% the whole rest of the season. So, if that happens now, but then we get to the playoffs and he's looking like he did when he first got traded here, okay.
We'll take it.
Okay, yeah, you wasted a couple nights. I had to stay up till 2 a.m., but like I was gonna do that anyways, man. Like, so that's I think perspective is needed. I think sometimes since Cleveland more of a football city than a basketball city, sometimes they look at everything through a football lens. And like in the NFL, if you lose 4 games in a row, you freak out. And in the NBA, if you do like the math, losing 4 games in a row is like losing 1 game in the NFL. Yeah. Like so it's like it's not really that big of a deal, right? It's just a different pace that everything goes to. And I'm glad that this team is not panicking. I think that's the experience, right? And I want to talk about this more because like Kenny Atkinson has been talked about because of what he's done and how much better the team's got as this like strategy guy. And I think there's some merit to that, right? I think Kenny's a very good X's and O's coach. But I think the best thing about Kenny Atkinson is this Zen master quality that he has, right? Like it's Phil Jackson-like almost, where he just understands the vibe, where he's like, we're gonna play horse, right? Like we're gonna diddle around at practice today, right? Like he gets what his team needs and what they need from him as a coach, and what players need to buy into their role specifically, like with DeAndre and Evan. You brought this up with Evan, I think, on the stream, where he's like, hey, Evan, we're going to let you dribble this ball up court, and you're going to have to figure it out. Like, I'm not going to let you not do it because you're not comfortable doing it, right? Like, you're going to have to figure it out. And now I'm seeing Evan do spin moves while dribbling up the court and then dunking on people. I'm like, it's only a matter of time before Evan catches himself a body on the perimeter. And what a beautiful day would that be if he gets like a step back 3?
Yeah, snatch someone's ankles, just put him on the floor. We're getting there. He put whoever that was. You mentioned the spin move. I don't know who he hit it on, but yesterday against Portland, hit him with the spin move. Unfortunately, he missed the layup in transition, so the highlight didn't get posted.
But you know what I liked about that highlight? I mean, that moment there? Because past Evan Mobley would do shit like that on accident.
Yeah.
Not really realize what he did. Evan did that, and once he realized what he did, he was like, I'm not passing this.
Yeah, he's like, I got to get this clip.
I got to get this bucket.
I got to get my moment right here.
Yeah, he's like, I got to get this bucket. I was like, okay. He started to understand what he could do, right? And that's important, right? Because, yeah, he might not make that layup that one time in Portland, but the fact that he could do that, he's going to get better at that. He's going to fit it. One time he went up around and like tried to finish like Darius. I'm like, that's gonna go in like consistently one day. And that's the stuff with Evan where we've been seeing it for years. We're like, okay, that's bookmark that. He can do that. Like, and that's gonna be something that you can get out of him. And it seems like Kenny has that same thing where it's like, no, you're gonna have to do this. DeAndre, I see him like trying to get DeAndre more comfortable dribbling, right? Because he wasn't really expected to dribble too much in Atlanta. He's like, no, you're gonna bring the ball up every once in a while, right? Like I'm gonna put you in these lineups where you gotta get a bucket, right? Like, and if your 3-point shot's not dropping, you gotta go and drive and get it and get you more comfortable there, right? Like he knows how to push these buttons and gears at certain times, how he works back to back. And I think that is the genius of Kenny Atkinson. Is this Wizard of Oz quality, right? Like he just unlocks whatever was inside of you, and this Zen master quality to really know how to push the buttons throughout an 82-game stretch. We talked about it. He was really intent, right? Coming out the All-Star break, we're going to be super intense. We're not going to let what happened the last 2 years happen where the Cavs slumped straight up after the All-Star break. No, we're going to come out and be super intense. He's aware of that narrative. He's like, we're not going to have that narrative happen, right? And then they win 16 in a row, and he's like, okay, we need to relax a little bit, right? There's no way we can carry this. We're going to be tired by the time we get to mid-April, right? And have to play in the playoffs if we stay like this. So he's like, okay, let's relax, right? Like, I bet part of it was, hey, it's LA, have fun. Right? We're in Sacramento. Go ahead and drive to San Francisco. Right? I'll meet you at the plane. We'll be in fucking Utah, Portland, right? Like, I bet part of this was like, hey, have fun. Be NBA players, right? Like, relax a little bit. And I think that was a big part of Phil Jackson's success, as well as like everything else Phil Jackson brings to a coach. And I think for an NBA coach to be great, that's the kind of shit that you need to be great. That's the stuff that JB didn't understand, right? Like JB was very much a coach's kid, right? Like he knows the clipboard and the work, and that's what he focuses on. But that gets monotonous after a while. People get tired of that shit after a while, and it's like you got to know how to break it up. And I think that's what Kenny really understands and has demonstrated. And I think that's when you look at like Steve Kerr. What's different between him and Mark Jackson? It's not really that much. But Steve Kerr's like, no, I understand. These guys are NBA players. I got to like that former player in him. Same thing with like you see JJ Redick having a huge impact with the Lakers right now. I think he's somebody who gets that part of it, right? Like even somebody like Pop, who is seen as kind of a disciplinarian, the shenanigans were still happening, right?
Yeah.
Like in San Antonio. And he was very much like open to things happening as long as they want to become a huge distraction. And I think that is what makes somebody a NBA coach versus a assistant coach or a college coach, right? And I think that is the best thing about Kenny Atkinson that he's brought is like, okay, I think he just gets it. Like I don't know if this is how he was in Brooklyn. If it was, I don't know why they let go of him. Maybe, it was Kyrie his own guy, right? But which, I mean, I think Kyrie would have probably been fantastic under Kenny Atkinson, and Kevin Durant. But,
they blew that one, but
maybe that's what Kenny needed to learn. Like, okay, and that's where he learned from Steve Kerr while sitting over there, right? Like maybe that's where he picked it up because he was a Mike Budenholzer guy before. But I think that is the thing that Kenny brings to the table. That's a huge part of why we're not just seeing like this team look better from an X's and O's standpoint, but players like Ty Jerome looks better in Cleveland. DeAndre Hunter looks better. Evan Mobley looks better. Darius Garland, like he looks better, right? Like Donovan Mitchell, I think is the only way you can argue has it, but I think that's kind of more intentional with Donovan than anything. But that's why I think even Jared Allen, who's felt more free to like have some post moves to his game, right? Like
the spin moves, the hook shots. I've been noticing it.
Yeah, so it's like I think that is Kenny's big superpower. What do you think of that is something Kenny can bring to the table?
I think that's a fantastic point. I think you absolutely nailed it. It's like an underrated aspect to all this that it's been mentioned a little bit, but like we talk about how good the vibes are in Cleveland, the locker room, the players are having such a good time. This team is so cohesive, the chemistry, all that. I think that this was not the case last year, and the roster hasn't changed much. Now, obviously, winning helps, but there's a reason why they're winning in the first place. There's a reason why the vibes are set up like this. There's a reason why Ty Jerome feels comfortable enough to pull up from 34 feet for his first shot of the game. There's a reason why Evan Mobley is dribbling the ball more often. It's because Kenny, like you said, he was like, hey, Evan, second quarter, every single game, you're bringing the ball up the floor. Sam Merrill's going to set you a pick. Go to work. Even like I know fans have been a little upset with Sam Merrill recently. Like, oh, why is he getting so many minutes? Why is he getting so many minutes? Well, here's the thing. When you have a three-point shooter, consistency and rhythm are like the most important things to getting them on track. You can't just go, oh, Sam, you missed a couple shots last 2 games. Yeah, you're sitting over here next to me for the rest of the week. That derails everything. That derails the entire morale of the player. And Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, like the players believe in Sam Merrill. They know what he's capable of. We've seen it. So Kenny Atkinson saying, yeah, I'm going to ride with my guys, even when they're struggling a little bit. That goes a long way. I know there's like a general saying or thing in the NBA when it comes to coaching where it's like, at this point, like how much, like, yes, the X's and O's are important, but like when you get this deep into your basketball career, you don't really need a coach to sit in front of you with a clipboard and tell you what to do. Yes, they need to guide you a little bit, but it's more about managing the personalities, managing the team, keeping it all together. And you can't argue that Kenny Atkinson hasn't done that. I mean, I think so much of this, yes, the players deserve a bunch of credit for their own personal development, but Kenny Atkinson putting them in a position to, click together, to buy into it, to empower them to try things, right? Like DeAndre Hunter dribbling the ball. Yesterday against Portland, I saw Isaac Okoro bringing the ball up the floor against pressure. And it was the whole idea of that is like, yeah, listen, Okoro, we trust you to dribble the ball. And if you bring the ball up the floor, then Darius Garland can kind of move off ball and try to get open and catch it with an advantage. But in years past, and again, this is no shade to JB, it's just a limitation or a different philosophy that I'm pointing out. JB had more of a mentality of, all right, we're going to play all the way to our strengths. And all of our weaknesses, we're just going to try to hide them in the corner. And Okoro, don't touch the ball. Just stand over there. Mobley, you're not really good at handling the ball. We're just going to run pick and roll, try to get you in the paint. Kenny said, listen, we're going to play to our strengths, but these weaknesses, we need to work on them too. So Mobley, guess what? You're dribbling the ball. Okoro, you're going to bring the ball up the floor in crunch time. And if you can't do it, I'll give you a long enough leash to try and fail and experiment. But if you can't do it, you can't do it. And that's some of the things that over the last few years under JB we talked about. It was kind of frustrating. It was like, okay, I just want to know, can Evan Mobley do these things? Can Okoro do this? Can Darius Garland close a game? Like, there were just questions that we hadn't had answered. And Kenny Atkinson has decided he's going to find out the answers to all of that. He seems very aware of all the narratives, even like you said, coming out of the All-Star break. He's like, all right, this team in years past struggled outside of the All-Star break. I'm going to challenge them. Can you guys lock in and prove to me that you're able to focus after the All-Star break? And once they did that and they dropped a couple games, he said, all right, we're tired. Donovan, you're going to take the night off because you're dealing with a groin injury. Darius, we're going to keep your minutes down. Ty Jerome, all this. He has just beautifully managed every aspect of this team. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, they're on pace for maybe the best. They kind of slid a little bit, but they may finish with the best record in franchise history because Kenny Atkinson has taken this roster and maximized every single player. There's, like you said, the only player who maybe hasn't been better is Donovan Mitchell, but it's intentional because that's kind of the whole point of this team is that you're not going to win on the back of Donovan Mitchell. You need the entire team helping Donovan, and he just has to be one part of it. And so that's what we've seen, a shift from like this heliocentric Mitchell's doing everything to let's let Mitchell kind of take a little bit of a back seat. He's not all the way in the back seat, but he's releasing some of his control of the offense. And that's allowed Darius to emerge as like the best closer on the team. It's allowed Evan Mobley to score 20 plus on any given night. It's just been, like I said, beautiful management of this team, top to bottom from Kenny.
Yeah, and like think about how he's managing like what a 10-man rotation, right? Like that's
we didn't think it was possible
to do. Hell, I mean, we see JB, he could not handle those like deep rotations, right? Like it got bad. He when he would get out there talking about I'm gonna get in the lab and start cooking up lineups, we were like, oh Lord, what is he about to come out here with?
What monstrosity am I about to see next?
About to have Robin Lopez and Tristan Thompson on the floor at the same time. Like, oh God, no, I'm good. But that's difficult to do is manage that and get guys to buy in. It's also difficult to, work in DeAndre Hunter while working out two of your pivotal bench pieces in George Niang and Karis LeVert. Feels like that was a year ago. Those two were on this team. But it's like, it's that same feeling like when the Cavs traded for J.R. Smith. It's like they were always like J.R. Smith and Amon Shumpert were always on this Cavs team. Like you don't really remember it before, but it's like it only happened like halfway through 2015, 2016. But anyways, yeah, it's like working that in when your team's as good as the Cavs are, right? Like it has the record the Cavs have. That's difficult, right? It's very difficult to do. I think as much credit as Kenny is getting, I think people are just like, oh, look at the record. Kenny's doing a good job. And I'm like, when you look and dissect what it is that Kenny's actually doing, I'm like, no, this is actually like extremely impressive, right? Like, I don't even know. It'd be hard to say because they won a championship that year, right? But when Ty Lue took over for David Blatt, there was a similar like, okay, things are a little bit different. But it was like LeBron's running the show now. It wasn't really like Ty Lue was like running things. Even though Ty Lue's a really good coach. It's a similar difference there. I think it probably even a bigger difference between like JB and Kenny in my mind than it was with like David and Ty. David Blatt gets kind of a bad rap. They did go to the finals with him, right? In spite of him. But yeah, it is something with Kenny that I think is going to be interesting. But now talking about how this team transitions from regular season to postseason, right? I think they're all aware that they have some experience, right? Like they're not new to the playoff environment. They know what it feels like. And I think this is the most important thing in the playoffs. They know what it feels like to lose when everybody's watching, right? That is something they have a keen understanding of. That New York series gave them that understanding, right? Of what are the consequences of losing when everybody is watching. they have some guys on this roster who have been to conference finals, NBA finals, have some playoff experience, know what it's like not to get through the hump, all of that stuff. Kenny's not really a super experienced playoff coach. What do you think changes for this team once they get into the playoffs? What tendencies do you think they switch up? Do you think they stay with this zone flourish, or do you think they add a different flourish to what they like to do defensively? Like, how do you anticipate what the Cavs do offensively and defensively to change in the playoffs, because things are going to have to be a little different?
Yeah, I think the defensive side of the ball is what's going to be more interesting for me to focus on, because as far as the offense goes, like I trust their process. A lot of it comes down to, are guys going to hit shots, which honestly, you could say that for every team in the NBA, right? It's the same thing for the Celtics. Are they going to hit their threes? We'll have to see. OKC, are they going to get good shooting from the supporting cast? We'll have to see. Same thing with the Cavs. So I know what to expect there. There's some X factors, but to focus on the defensive end, because I think that's the more interesting thing. They gotta reestablish their identity a little bit. They've slipped at times this season. They're still a top 10 defense, but they've gone from top 3 to kind of like that 7 to 10 range all year. And they've had moments like during this losing streak where they've fallen. I think they're 20th in defensive rating over the last 2 weeks. So there's been a little bit of a slippage. Now, I actually like the zone. Jackson, who does the streams with me from Fear the Sword, he pointed out something very, very important, I think, with the zone, is that earlier in the season, we got some zone PTSD because you had George Niang out there. And, no disrespect to George Niang, but when you're playing a zone, you're asking a guy to cover a large amount of space all on his own. That's not really catering to Niang's strength. He's not rotating from the paint all the way to the corner 3 and back and forth and moving like that as well. You get DeAndre Hunter, and that's a guy who can thrive in his zone. So I actually like the idea of the zone. The issue is there's 2 big X factors that I think we need to talk about for the defense. One, is Jared Allen going to be a beast? Is he going to be a monster, or is he going to kind of disappear? Now, I'm not saying that he's, not doing the soft narrative or anything like that, but he has games where he's just not as active. He's not as noticeable, right? Like Jared Allen's one of those guys who you don't notice when he's playing well, but you really notice when other teams are getting rebounds and he's just kind of running up and down the floor.
Do you think he needs to sit out a couple of guys? I know he wants to play because he loves being the Iron Man. But this whole West Coast trip, I don't think he's gotten over 10 rebounds. And like part of that was like, okay, man, like you got beat up against the Clippers. Like it is what it is. That man outweighs you by like 40 pounds. I've talked about this ad nauseum, right? Jared Allen might be 7 foot. He's not giant, right? Like in the ways that some of the bigs on the West Coast are. But yeah, he hasn't gotten more than 10. I know he has that hand injury. I don't know if he's trying to nurse that while still playing. Like, to me, I'm like, just let him sit for like a week and like see what happens. Like, because this is not the Jared Allen that we're used to. He's missing more free throws than usual, which he's never been a great free throw guy. His floater ain't, well, not the floater, but the little push shot, it's not dropping at the same rate. Like, he don't look like Jared Allen right now. That's the one thing I am like of this losing streak where I'm like, Jared's giving you those performances that, like, if he keeps doing this in the playoffs, it's going to piss you off.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Is like if he's doing his job, you don't notice him. But if he's not doing his job, all of a sudden you're going to see a lot of angry Cavs
garbage
fans.
Man. Hey, look, the garbage man. Let the garbage man do his job. Nobody cares when the garbage man do his job. But let the garbage man leave that shit at your house for more than a day. Furious.
You're going to be pissed off. So I do think, I will say, to give Jared Allen credit, last game against Portland, second half, it's the first time where I was like, okay, Jared Allen looks like himself right now. Now, granted, that's only one half. I think generally, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what's going on with his health or the injury or anything, but whatever it may be, I'm going to trust the coaching staff. If he needs a night off or even a week off, I hope that they give it to him because, again, we've seen all we need to see. I know who Jared Allen is. Let's just make sure he's healthy and ready to go for the playoffs. So he's going to be an X factor because, yeah, I mean, listen, like the Cavs, they're not a very good rebounding team. They haven't been all season. But they are a good rebounding team when Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are on the floor. When one of them's off the floor or when both of them are off the floor or whatever weird combination you make, the rebounding plummets. So you need Jared Allen to be active and on the glass. That's going to be a big key. Thankfully, there's no big, Zubac or Valanciunas or anything like that in the Eastern Conference. Maybe we'll have to deal with like Mitchell Robinson at some point, but I'm not as worried about the Knicks anymore.
Mitchell averages like 6 points. Like, it's
Yeah.
the difference between him and Zubac, right? Like,
yeah. The Western Conference is loaded with those bigs because everyone's got to deal with Jokic. In the East, you don't really have as much to deal with. I mean, even Embiid is like the Sixers are done. So it's just, there's not as many obstacles. I guess Kristaps maybe, but the point is, Jared Allen, you need him to be locked in and active. And the other thing, DeAndre Hunter, I think he's the other X factor defensively because I know what to expect from everyone else on defense at this point. DeAndre Hunter has had moments in a Cavs uniform where you're like, all right, there it is. He's the missing piece. He's literally a 6'8" wing, athletic, long wingspan. He can defend multiple positions. He can rebound the ball. Then you've had other games where you look at the box score and it's like, all right, he's got 15 points, nothing else. 0, 0, 0, 0 across the board. You're like, listen, DeAndre, I need you to grab at least one rebound, right? Like at least get down there and grab a couple. You are clearly capable of doing it. And so there's been a little back and forth there. I know that's been the case for DeAndre's entire career. If you talk to Hawks fans, they're like, oh, good luck. We've been asking him to be more consistent in that department forever. I do think being on a title contender is all the motivation you'd ever need. And I think, like I said, he's had games where he actually does attack the glass and he does play defense. So if you get DeAndre Hunter locked in, and you get Jared Allen locked in, then I have zero concerns about this defense. I think they're one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, and they can lock up anybody on any given night. But if Jared Allen is having a bad series, DeAndre Hunter's kind of just, getting his points and doing nothing else, then you might get a little worried. Maybe not in the first round against whoever you play, but when you talk about beating Boston, you're going to need Jared Allen to be like, Jared Allen's gotten played off the floor a couple times against Boston, but he's also had moments where you're like, okay, Al Horford, it's rare, but you've had moments where you're like, Al Horford has his hands full with the both bigs right now. Like he needs Kristaps Porzingis out there or they're going to be cooked. So you need Jared Allen to be a beast. Specifically, I guess more so against the Thunder, we saw Jared Allen and Evan Mobley be too much for the opposing bigs, not as much Al Horford. That man, we've talked about it before. He just, for whatever reason, he just keeps on playing well against the Cavs. But Jared Allen and Evan Mobley have proven that they can both be too much for the opposing teams, especially the contenders like OKC, even Milwaukee at times. But if you're going to get over Boston, you need Hunter to ball out. That's the reason why we traded for him. And it would be nice if Jared Allen could be on the floor too, because you want both bigs. That's one of your best strengths. And we haven't really seen it this year that much.
Sometimes I miss 2016 Tristan Thompson, just being
Turn
able to muscle
one
out.
Time.
That's the one thing that 2016 team was really good at because they had Kevin Love out there and Tristan was like, hey, they can rebound, right? They can rebound like crazy. Despite both those guys being, under 7 foot, Tristan's 6'8"?
Like 6'9", 6 NBA heights are I don't know how tall anybody is, man. They all lie.
You a 7-footer in the NBA. You got like a 7-foot wingspan, and then you're above 6'9", right? Like as long as you're basically 7 foot in the NBA. But yeah, I think Tristan was like 6'7", 6'8", or something like that.
He's definitely not a 7-footer. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, 7-footer in his heart, though, right?
Yeah, he plays like a 7-footer.
But yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, there's this one thing about this Cavs team I just don't quite understand. They are the worst long rebound team I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's always those ones too. Yeah.
And I just need 2 days of practice where Kenny's just like, all right, we're just going to throw this bitch off the rim and we're going to get rebounds because we suck at tracking these. It is like our worst trait. And it does matter because you're playing, if you play against Boston, I think this does matter. They shoot so many damn threes that there's going to be a lot of long rebounds. And it's like they have mastered the art of, all right, I got a guard out there, I'm going to tip it, right? So it goes all the way back into the backcourt, right? We seem to not have mastered whatever it is that you need to master to counter that, right? Like whether it is you got to put your ass on somebody, at the free throw line, do something, right? Because the long rebound stuff, I'm like, it's one of them silent killers where it's like, it's never so prevalent to where it's like, it's the main thing you're mad at, but it contributes to everything that pisses you off when the Cavs have those moments. Why is it that they're bad at these long rebounds? And is there a way to get better at these long rebounds?
I feel like I mean, I don't have the numbers, but I agree with you. Like, it feels like those are the ones that hurt us the most because they add up over the course of a game. And if I had to guess off the top of my head, I feel like because you have the two guards, the two shorter guards, it's a bit harder for them to get down there and not even get down there, but just those balls that are at the free throw line, they're not as likely to grab them. But even just the tap outs, like I think opposing bigs, especially Boston. I know I maybe even have talked about this before on the pod. I don't remember, but I know Boston, they literally tell their guys, like, if a 3-point shot goes up, don't crash all the way into the paint. Go to the free throw line because that ball is going to come out long more often than not. Whereas when you look at the Cavs, a lot of times they crash all
They
the way
crash.
into the paint. Yeah, it's like you got to have some guys, whether it's Max Strus, even DeAndre Hunter, or actually, I think this is another thing that we talk about sometimes. I think one of the awkward things you get with the two bigs is that both Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, they've been a great pairing, but they're both hardwired to be big men. They're both centers. So you see at times they're both standing in the paint protecting the rim when really you kind of only need one big in the paint at any given time. The other guy should probably be out in the corner guarding whoever's out there. Same thing with the rebounds. I think sometimes they both crash all the way into the paint when that ball's going long, and you could probably have Allen down there boxing out, and Mobley maybe farther near the free throw line, whatever it may be. I guess if you want to get crazy with it, Kenny Atkinson, maybe experiment with some stuff in the last 10 games. Because, like I said, we don't really have anything to play for. Let's try to tell Mobley for an entire game, stand like above the restricted area on these rebounds. Let's just see how many of these we can grab, actually. I don't know if I doubt they'll actually do that, but I think you're on to something. Those long rebounds, more often than not, are the ones that hurt. Even the Zubac game that we mentioned, like a lot of that was just him tapping it out, and then James Harden collects it at half courts. Like, I don't know what it is, but that's something they're going to have to address.
Yeah, I mean, even against the Portland Trailblazers, right, that happened to them where, they were getting a lot of tap outs there. It's been a consistent, like, I remember the Knicks series, Josh Hart had like a nauseating amount of rebounds like that. Like Peyton Pritchard be getting these damn rebounds on us. And that's where I draw the line. It's like, okay, if Jason Tatum is out rebounding Darius Garland, am I going to be pissed off about that? But, you got to box out Peyton Pritchard. Right, like
you can't let that guy get the board. That just
you can't let him get
too
four.
much.
That's ridiculous. Like, what the fuck? He got 25, 10, and 4. That don't make no sense. Like, no. That's ridiculous. So that's one of those things where I look at it, I'm like, they seem to have not figured out that that's a problem for them yet, or if they have figured out it's a problem, they're just okay with it being a problem. And, like, you got to pick your poison, right? Like, you're not going to be perfect. They're always going to have things that bug you about teams, right? The 2016 Cavs won a championship. Had a lot of shit that bugged me. I was like, okay, I don't know if that's going to work. Is that going to be fine? But they had Bron. It covered it up. That's why I worry, like, you don't have Bron to cover it up, so you do need to worry about some of these smaller things. Is this like long rebound stuff, especially against the Celtics, right? Because the thing I keep pointing to with the Celtics, it only gets bad when you can't rebound against them. When you can rebound against the Celtics, all of a sudden, even playing field, you whip their ass most of the time, right? When, like, the rebounding margin is equal or in the Cavs' favor, the Cavs are, like, way ahead of the Boston Celtics in those situations. It's just the Celtics get these stretches where they get like 12-3 on rebounds. And then they go up by 20 because they make every three that they take. And
yeah, they're not going to miss 2 threes in a row. So you got to get the board.
You spend the whole rest of the game digging yourself out of that hole. And if you could just avoid getting into that hole, I think you have a much easier chance to beat Boston in a 7-game series. I think the rebounding thing is probably the most important thing for me. That's going to be what I keep an eye on with this Cavs team. I don't care about what everybody else is worried about with the offense, right? Like, oh, can Darius and Donovan get you 25 a night? I don't think it matters. Like, if Darius going to have like a 13-point game where he has like 7 assists, but Evan gets 25. It's fucking fine. Right, like the Cavs have enough on offense. I'm not really. If Darius ain't got it, then maybe that's the day that Ty Jerome goes off, or something like that, or that's the DeAndre Hunter big game, or you got enough firepower, or Donovan Mitchell just go off for 40.
Yeah.
like you got enough in there, right? We're not like Oklahoma City where we're like, we got one guy who could score at a high level. We got multiple, right? So
Yeah.
I don't worry as much about that. The offensive stuff there, it's fine. I think defensively, the Cavs will lock in. They've always been a great defensive team. I think they've been focusing on other stuff during the regular season, but they feel like a team that once they have these moments where they decide, okay, we're going to lock in. And then they completely they get these
You
shot
still
clock
see it,
violations and teams are like, oh fuck, like they're playing defense. That happened to Portland like 4 times in a row where like the Cavs are like, okay, we're gonna just lock in defensively. You can just see Scoot like, whoa, wait a minute, like what, this is different. Like what happened? Like this shit was easy like 2 minutes ago. And it's not now. So they still have that. It's just like that small stuff around the edges, right? Jared Allen, he's tall, but he's not big. How much is that going to matter, right? You know, are we going to be able to move Kristaps away enough from the hoop to where he can't get tip backs, right? To get Jason Tatum second opportunities. It's hard enough to stop these dudes when they get one. Can't let them get 2, right? Like that should be the focus there. How can we avoid Boston from getting those second chance points? That's the only thing that's killed us versus them. And I think that's going to be what makes or breaks this playoff run for the Cavs. Obviously, Darius has to play well down, but I have faith in those guys to do what they need to do their part. I think the rebounding part is where I'm like, I don't know.
And that's the thing you can control, right? Like you can't control that. No one can predict whether or not Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland or whoever else is going to shoot the ball well. The process is what matters to me on offense. I want them to run their offense and go through the usual stuff that we've seen. But if shots don't fall, that's life in basketball. It's a make or miss league. The rebounding stuff, that's something you can control to a degree. Sometimes you get some weird bounces and stuff, but defense, rebounding, you can give yourself a larger margin for error if you're locked in on that end. And I think it's important what you said. They've established over the last 3 years, if they've done anything, they've established that they can play defense, right? So it hasn't been as good this year, but it's not like they've let go of the rope completely. They're not like a bottom 10 team or anything. They're still 8th in the NBA. We hear, I won't even open this whole can of worms right now, but we're hearing the Draymond Green Defensive Player of the Year stuff. Oh, the Warriors, they're an elite defense. They are 0.1 points per possessions better than us. They are 0.1 point better on defense. But you talk about the Cavs, it's like, oh, we're so worried about their defense. Talk about the Warriors, elite defense, Draymond Green, they're title contenders now. I'm like, all right, guys, like the narratives are getting a little ridiculous. You can go ahead, build your case for Draymond. That's fine. It's a great defender. Don't do it by slandering the Cavs or Evan Mobley. Let's keep it real at least, right? Like it just gets under my skin sometimes.
I hate to bring up Heat era Bron, but I'm like, this reminds me of Heat era Bron, like team wide. Because like they were like, oh, LeBron's slipping as a defender. Look at his efficiency numbers during the regular season. I'm like, yeah, but when LeBron needs to be a great defensive player, he can be a great defensive player, right? Like he just doesn't need to because you got Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh scoring points. In Cleveland, he needed to, right? Because you need to do everything to win games in Cleveland with what he had around him. But like in Miami, I mean, hey, second run in Cleveland, he didn't have to play hard defense until he needed to. And what did he get? The block, right? Like,
there you go.
Good. He can still play. Not 40-year-old LeBron's a bit different, right? Like, not as good as a defensive player, but like Bron in his prime, or at least late prime, where people are like, oh, he's slipping as a defender. It's like, no, he just doesn't need to be that locked in defensively all the time. That's where I see the Cavs are like, hey, we're the best offense in the NBA. We just don't need to be locked in defensively in the way that like we needed to with JB, because like we had 2 guys who could dribble, pass, and shoot with Karras and Darius, right? That's when that whole defensive thing started. They needed to be that good defensively. Now it's like, okay, if they get a 3, man, it's not a big deal.
We're going to come back down, hit a 3 of our own.
Like,
defense is a lot more important when you're scoring 90 points a game versus putting up 130 on an off night.
Yeah, and like think about the evolution of it. The Cavs could go down by 10, and I'm like, all right, man, y'all being annoying, but like we gonna tie it back up. Like when the Cavs used to go down 10, when it was like Darius and Evan, I was like, oh man. that's a lot to ask for, right? Like to go
That's
on
half
like
the points they score in a quarter.
the Cavs will go on a 10-5, 12-2 run like it's nobody's business. You don't even notice it anymore when the Cavs go on those runs. Because the Cavs will go on like an 18-2 run. And they do that pretty often as well, right? Like, so, yeah, when you're capable of that, your mind's just not going to be, we need to lock in defensively all the time. You're going to be like, all right, let's lock. And the fact that they can't go on those runs seemingly at will tells you everything you need to know. The defense is still there. Like, I have no doubt that they're going to be able to lock in. They got the defensive player of the year. They got Jared Allen. Darius gives you effort, which is all you need from the point guard position, right?
Yep.
Like if he gets caught out there on the island with the 6'8" guy, he's fucked. But if he puts in some effort, maybe he could force a bad shot, right? Like, that's all you're hoping, right? Make him work for it, right? Let Jason Tatum get fatigued if he's going to score 40 on you. But, Donovan's a solid defender. I think a better defender than people give him credit for. And then you got Dean Wade off the bench, DeAndre Hunter, solid team defender. I think on ball, it could be iffy at times, but on ball defense is so difficult, right?
Yeah. That's why you got the bigs back there.
Yeah, you got Evan, you got Jarrett. Like, you got enough there to where I'm like, I've seen him as Max Strus. You're fine defensively. Ty Jerome, right? People forget he comes from that
Scrappy
Virginia system, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like you got to play a ton of defense. So yeah, defensively they're fine. I just think they don't have to be that good all the time. So their overall numbers aren't going to be what it once was. But that's the only thing with them is these damn rebounds, right? Like, it's these damn rebounds with the Cavs.
It's a little bit of a worry, just a little bit.
Yeah, because they're just not built to be a great rebounding team. This is not what their strengths are. But I don't need them to be a great rebounding team, right? I don't need them to be the 2015-16 Cavs, right? I don't need them to be Kevin Love and I don't want to say prime Tristan Thompson, but Tristan Thompson in 2016, right? Right. But you do need to be decent, right? Like, maybe the Celtics can go on a 10-0 run because they're getting a bunch of rebounds, right? But it can't get to 20. Right,
you can't
got
get
enough
pummeled.
offense where you can't go down 17 because you're not getting rebounds. Right, that is, I think, where the difference needs to be had, and I think that difference gets made up. Donovan Mitchell's going to have to get a lot of those like Spider-Man rebounds, right? But he's going to have to do it. Yeah, he's going to have to do those kind of in the midcourt, right? You're going to have Evan be a little bit more aware because I think he's the one that can do it, right? Jarrett. You're never going to get Jarrett to not be Jared Allen, right? But Evan is a bit more adjustable, right? Like, okay, if Jarrett's crashing, I don't need to go down there. Darius has this habit of trying to get in the middle because he's a pit bull, right? But it's like, no, Darius, stay the fuck back, right? We need you to catch something if it gets tipped out, right? Figuring out what their plan is on these long rebounds, trying to get better in the short rebound. Because sometimes I think the Cavs make their lives more difficult trying to get rebounds close to the hoop because there's too many of them there. But I think that is the big part for this team to answer. Are their shots going to drop? We don't have control of that, but numbers tell us they'll drop, right? Eventually, they'll make shots, right? You'll get good games from players. Your numbers are going to be your numbers. Their numbers are very good offensively. But rebounds are the one where I'm like, they need to. That's the only thing I look at this Cavs team like, hey, they need to improve to have a good chance to win a championship. If they can do that, and like if the rebound numbers look good and we're like 3 games into a Boston series, Tony, I'm gonna get excited because I'm like, oh shit, dude. Like,
that's the difference maker. It's the little things, but it makes a difference. Like, it's gonna be hard. Look, winning a championship is very, very difficult. But if you start if you're cleaning up the smaller margins of the game, and then you get Ty Jerome hits like 4 threes or something, or Donovan Mitchell is on fire, it's like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, we're in the driver's seat. It could be a rock fight, but if you're taking care of those other things and you get the shooting on your side, oh man, this team, they can beat anybody. So that's why we should be excited about this team. Are they going to do it? I don't know. It's impossible to know. I can't tell you whether or not the Cavs are going to win the championship, but I can tell you that I've seen enough this season to know that if things fall in the right place, they can do it. And that's all you can really ask for, because that's just basketball, right? Like nobody can guarantee that the Celtics, everything's going to work for them. If you're going to win a championship, you got to have a lot of things go right. And the Cavs are one of those teams where if the stars align, they can actually do it this year. And there's only a couple teams that can really say that.
Yeah, and the thing with the Cavs, right, where I'm like, even if you do, let's say you get out the East and you play one of these guys with the big, is that a problem for the Cavs? Sure. But we saw against, I forget which team was it. Was it Phoenix? Who has Jonas Valanciunas?
It's the Kings now, I believe.
The Kings. Okay. We saw versus the Kings where like Jonas was big. He was giving us the same problems that you were getting against the Clippers. But Evan just made threes and it just took him out the game completely. And it's like, you have a answer for that. Evan Mobley can play some of the, like, you could just go one big lineup and play these giant centers off the floor. And like, to Evan's credit, he's not big, but he's wiry strong. And he holds up against those guys a little bit better. I think Jared Allen does sometimes. Jared,
I agree.
Yeah, because like he just like I think it's the extra height that just helps him there, right? Like where it's like, all right, you're not bearing down on me because Jared's like 6'9", 6'10 ish, right?
Yeah.
Evan's like a true 7 foot, so I think that makes a bit of a difference there. But you could go one big, force them to be athletic with you, and play them off the court if you really like. It becomes a problem. You have an adjustment that you could go to there. Yeah, like even that one, I'm like, hey, that just means we're going to have to lean on Evan to be really good in whatever series that is. Not really overly concerned if that can happen or not, because I think Evan's a good player. I think Evan will step up in that moment, especially if he doesn't have to go through like two bigs to do it, right? It's only like one guy there. He's finesse enough to where he can get a shot off against him. He's gotten really good at that. And he can still elevate over guys because he's 7'4" wingspan, right? So, there's somebody being big there doesn't really bother me. Maybe we got to see how he does against these other longer guys like Kristaps, where Kristaps is also 7'4", right, with his arms. So
He's
like
a problem.
It's difficult for him to get his shit off. So he has to figure out a different way because he can't blow by Kristaps either, right? Like that's just a very difficult matchup for Evan, right? But somebody like like Jokic, I think he's had good games against Jokic because that's not as much as a mess for him to deal with. It's going to be tough, obviously, right? But it's going to be about some of this small stuff with the Cavs. They're a good team. They have more wins than 2016 Cavs who won a championship right now, right? No matter when this video comes up, that will be true. They have more wins than all the second era Bron teams and all of the Lenny Wilkins, Mark Price Cavs teams and anything the Cavs did before LeBron, right? This is the best non-LeBron team of all time in Cleveland Cavaliers history. This is where we're at. Yeah, and it's March, okay?
Yeah, we still got 10 games to go as of recording this.
Yeah, so they're good. They have what it takes talent-wise. The question is this small stuff, right? That's what lost you the series against New York. They were able to get that shit. You had no adjustment that you can flip to. They were deeper than you. You weren't deep. Now the switches have been flipped dramatically on that one, right, with New York and Cleveland. But it's that small stuff that's really going to make the difference at the end of the day. And that, to me, I think is what people should be focused on is like, okay, what are these small things that I want to watch during the playoffs to feel better about versus like, let me nitpick these 13 Ty Jerome minutes and see if he's actually falling off, right? Like where like just last night, he has one of those, like I turn into Luka quarters, right? Where it's like, okay, cool. You can always tell because like when Ty Jerome's shot doesn't fuck around and it just drops, oh yeah, it's over with, dog. Like his shot not playing around, it should just went in. Yeah, it's over with. Because usually his three likes to bounce around or swirl around.
He gets a shooter's bounce a lot of times.
Yeah.
But when it's the Typhoon, that thing's straight through the net. And it doesn't matter where he's shooting it from. He could be falling down. He could be, he had a Euro step like through somebody yesterday, like just straight trucked him with a Euro step. I've never seen someone truck someone with a Euro step, but it was like a power 1-2 through him. I don't remember if it was an N1 or not, but Ty Jerome's special, man. I know that was a detour, but the dude, every time Mitchell or Garland are out, Ty Jerome comes in and has like 25 points in 20 minutes. It's remarkable.
I am kind of sad that now Ty Jerome has done this enough to where people know who he is because
Yeah.
who the fuck is this guy? Every time Ty Jerome went off was just some of the best stuff. Like, you imagine that in New York. Oh, the Cavs like played New York. They still didn't know who Ty Jerome was, and Ty goes 40 on him. It's like, oh,
Torches
yeah.
them.
Like, what the Ty Jerome? I'm like, he's been doing this all year, y'all. Like,
Oh man. Yeah, the Ty Jerome experience has been crazy. And yeah, people are onto it now. For a minute when he was slumping, I was like, this could be a good thing. Maybe it's gonna lower his value. You know, we'll be able to retain him. But the thing is, we need him to ball out in the playoffs. And if he's gonna get a big payday, it's gonna be because he balls out in the playoffs.
what do we see playing where he said I could start on? Was it
Orlando. Yeah. He's right.
He's like,
he's
I can be a
right.
starter on your team. Who are you talking to right now? And I'm like, yeah, please don't become a starter for the Orlando
Yeah.
Magic. You know,
I was like, man, he's been thinking about it, huh? I don't like this. He's already thought about what teams he would start for.
But send the contract in now, Kobe. Like,
Get it done. Extend this man immediately.
Yeah, get this extended. Look, that'd be the best thing that can happen for the Cavs in April. Isn't how many games they can win if they get to 67 wins. If they get Ty Jerome under an extension in April, oh, we're good.
Throw a parade. Yeah.
We're good. We're locked in. We got DeAndre and him. We're gonna have the best bench in the NBA for like the next 3 years. Like, but that Ty Jerome, I think he is just a phenomenal player, fun player to watch. And I always love these players who can hoop at 0.75 speed because that's just real skill right there, right? I say Jokic hoops slow, and it's like what you can do about it, nothing. You can't time it up. Like he just, it's just that old man game at the rec, right? You ever run into like a teacher that can really hoop, like actually hoop? You're like, oh shit, he played in college, like at least Division II. Like,
Just moving at his own pace. Can't throw him off his game.
Him up.
Yeah, he can't speed him up. Can't move him off his spots. He's getting to where he wants to go. It doesn't matter what speed he goes at, but he's gonna get to where he wants to go. And he's taking a shot that he's practiced like a billion times, and it's going in. So it's unstoppable.
No, I remember when I learned out that difference was like, okay, the difference between a guy who can hoop at the rec and a guy who can hoop for real. Guy who hoop at the rec, always 100% speed all the time. No start stop. Just all speed all the time. Guy, like when we had like a kid on the team at YSU play, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, he not even being sped up. He's just like, yeah, I'm pacing through. Like he gets a crazy layup, and it's just like he wasn't even going full speed. Like, he knows what he's doing. Like,
he's just 2 steps ahead of me every time. Yeah.
And then you watch that dude versus Notre Dame, and you're like, yo, he don't even look that good.
He's not even getting on the floor. He's on the bench. It's like, what the hell? Yeah. Dude, there really are levels to this that I think until you play against someone who's even just a Division II player, you don't even fully realize because it's crazy. It really is.
The gap between a person who could get any type of money for hooping and person who hoops for fun, it is the widest gap in all of sports. I will contend that there is no larger gap in any other sport than basketball. Because like I saw, what is this dude named Kendrick Perry? He was at YSU, hooper. I think he led the NCAA in points. Best player I've ever seen in person up to that point in my life, where I'm like, I'm up there, up close watching. I'm like, this dude is amazing. Played in Australia, couldn't even make it in the G League.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it was like, damn, like Kay Felder, when he was in the Horizon League, I remember watching him like, yo,
destroying people.
and then he gets to the NBA and it's like he can't do nothing. And it's like, wow. There is no bigger difference between those dudes. And that's why I was like, I got off, like I was never on it, but like the whole Bronny thing, the second he dropped like 30 in the G League, I'm like, he belongs, dude. Like that's hard.
He can play. Yeah.
To 30 in the G League, not everybody who's drafted can do that. Like,
no, dude. The Bronny stuff's crazy. I mean, he like, I don't know. I don't even want to get into it because I'll just be yapping forever, but it's like, just such unnecessary hate. I'm like, why are you so mad at an 18-year-old? Like, just take a step back and be like, why am I so angry at this 18-year-old for getting an opportunity that, by all accounts, even if he wasn't LeBron James Jr., he clearly earned the right to be there, and he's showing it
He
now. So
got,
it's just, yeah.
yeah, when he was getting like 20, 30 points in the G League at 18, 19 years old, I'm like, that's an
He
NBA
deserves a
player.
chance. Yes, like
Yeah, like
he should
at
be
night,
getting minutes or an opportunity somewhere.
like take your favorite player from March Madness, pluck him in the G League, they might average 7. like straight up.
Amani Bates is an example. I don't even mean this as a diss, but like Amani Bates, amazing player in high school. Kind of, his college career was a little bit different, but like he's averaging like 18 or something. It's like you have to understand there are just levels to this. And,
No,
and yeah, the Bronny stuff, it's like the man's hooping. Like you're putting up 30. I think didn't he just score like 39 points or something too in the G League? Like he just had a career high, maybe it was 36. Clearly he's got some talent.
yeah. I've been around professional football players. I've been around professional basketball. I'm like, there's no bigger difference than somebody who could be in the NBA. Like that is the skill gap between the general public and an NBA player. That is the largest skill gap in all of sports, right? I don't know much about football de international or like,
Same.
yeah. So like, I don't know what that difference is like. Maybe there's something similar there, right? But an NBA player, they are so much better than a college player. like the worst NBA player is just, you could just tell when you watch college basketball because it don't even hit the fucking hoop the same. like,
No, the misses aren't even the same. Yeah,
there is such a stark difference. And I don't care what league you're talking about, men or women's, like somebody who gets paid to hoop and has got like a second contract, oh yeah, that person could cook anybody that you know. Anybody that you know, that person could cook them without discrimination. It is just, that's how good you have to be to stay at that level, because it's like so many people try to play basketball for a living. So many people try to get to the NBA.
Only like 350, 400 players in the league, and you have to think there's literally millions of people who are working so hard to get there, and there's only like 400 that make it.
Yeah, we talked about Jabari Parker out there finally finding a niche for himself in EuroLeague.
yeah.
It's like, it is not because he's bad at basketball.
He's just not
good at basketball.
Yeah, he's just not a top 400 player in the world, but like he's still damn good.
Yeah, you got to be so damn good to be like it. That's what makes what LeBron did was just fucking fed. Like, and again, we got into a lot of LeBron on this episode, but that's what makes LeBron just incredible, because it's like he was doing this shit. Like we talk about Bronny putting up 18, 40 in the G League at 19 years old, and that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
17 in an NBA game at his age is pretty impressive, right? Because like you look at like 18-year-old Kobe, he wasn't doing shit at all, like on that team, or at least he wasn't efficient. But then you look at 18-year-old Bron, and it's like, hey man, we are never seeing anything like that again. Like the odds of that ever happening again, I feel like are so ridiculously low, because nobody
coming in
has
with that
ever
much
done
hype too. Yeah, you come in with that much hype at that age, and you exceed every expectation. Dude, they made the finals. He was like 21 or 22, maybe even 23. But I know he was like what fourth year in the NBA. It's like this dude.
He would have been graduating college if he was normal.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like this would have been like his first or second year for most players. He's already in the NBA finals. Now they got swept. We talked about this a little bit yesterday on the playback stream, just naming former Cavs players. It's like, yeah, he's out there with, I don't even remember who exactly was on the 2017 team.
I remember.
Or 2017. Yeah.
Drudis Ilgauskas.
Big Z.
Big Z, Drew Gooden. LeBron was at the 3. Was it Boobie played the point, but I don't think he started. I think Eric Snow and Boobie flipped.
Eric Snow, yeah.
Yeah, flipped things there. And Larry Hughes, the worst free agency signing.
There you go.
With
so many of those
Pavlovich
teams
coming off the bench.
They just get blurred in my mind, because I'm like, they literally were throwing anything and everything at the wall to try to get LeBron help, and just like 90% of them missed. Every move they tried to make, they tried.
Flip Murray,
but
they traded for Flip Murray, Delonte West. They were desperate, dog.
Yeah.
Mo Williams,
J.J. Hickson. You had Ben Wallace, Shaquille O'Neal in 2010. It's like they were doing everything.
Draft? Was it Luke Walton? No, it wasn't Luke Walton. It was another Luke, though.
Oh, they did have Luke Walton at one point, didn't they?
Yeah,
Or am I? No,
yeah,
I'm thinking of.
I'm thinking
I think I'm
this is a
thinking of
kid
the
they
later
drafted
Cavs.
soon. And he was like a first round pick, and he was
See if I can
supposed to be
find
a
it.
3-point guy. He was a white dude with floppy hair, and I think his name was Luke.
Here,
Was it
let's see
Luke
him.
Jackson?
Yeah, Luke Jackson, 10th pick in 2004. He averaged, let's see, his first 2 years in Cleveland, he was shooting, 66% from three his first year, but I think he only attempted half a three a
I'm about to
game.
say
He
this
didn't
is
even
this is
attempt a full three.
2005
Yeah.
NBA. That's off a half a shot.
Next year, yeah, literally half a shot was 0.6 3-point attempts per game. Let's see the total. He attempted 6 threes all season. He played 10 games. Okay. So he didn't play much. Second season, he played 36 games and he shot 33%. So, and he didn't last much longer in the NBA. Career 36% 3-point shooter, which isn't horrible. But yeah, I mean, they missed on basically every attempt to get LeBron any help.
Yeah, it's the 3-point percentage is jumping the way they have to where it's like I remember when 30 was good.
Yeah. It's like now you need to be shooting 40% and you have to be taking like 8 threes a game.
Because like, it'd get me sometimes where I'm like, yeah, man, he's shooting well for threes at what, 35? And someone's like, 35? And I'm like, oh, I guess it's not good no more. Like, my bad.
Yeah, you got to be at 40 now.
Yeah, it's 38, 40.
At worst, yeah.
What, Steph's career 42? Like, or something ridiculous like that? Like, okay, cool. That shit did not happen when I was a kid watching the NBA. Like, it was like with Ben Wallace and the fucking Pistons and Chauncey Billups was a sniper. He shot like 28% from three. But yeah, those were some interesting Cavs teams. This team, every team the Cavs have had since then have been better around LeBron than those Cavs teams were. But it's going to be interesting to see how this Cavs team adjusts to the playoffs. Appreciate you, Tony, for coming on. Make sure you check out Tony's stuff at Fear the Sword, his playback streams, and also Tony Pest's YouTube channel, right, on YouTube. So I'm going to make sure I tag that down below. Tony, anything else you got to say to folks before we head out?
No, thanks for having me, man. This is always fun talking Cavs basketball, talking NBA in general. So really appreciate you having me on. I got to get you on my show soon.
I'll try to keep. We just won't bring up LeBron because that's a tangent, right? No, you start bringing up them old Cavs, I start reminiscing and I start thinking about like Ira Newble.
Trips down memory lane, yeah.
Brendan Hayward, was that the second run? Brendan was on
I
that
think that was
second
second
team.
run.
Yeah,
that was the second
because
run.
we had a cabal of shitty centers that we just ran out there in 2014 because we just needed somebody to be a big, which is hilarious because that's kind of the position the Lakers are in right now. Where they're somebody.
Yeah. It's a historical LeBron problem.
Hey, if Tristan didn't have a job, he would definitely be in
He'd be
LA
over
right
there.
now.
Yeah, he'd be right back over there.
He'd be getting minutes.
One way or another, he would be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they got what they out there throwing out Isaac Hayes. I mean, not Isaac Hayes, but Jackson Hayes out there.
Yeah, Jackson Hayes, yeah. Hey,
they need big.
He's got the easiest job in the world. You just got to run, catch lobs, try to protect the rim. But yeah, they're struggling at the center position.
All right, y'all. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.